College is supposed to be the best time of your life. But what if your dorm holds a secret no one dares talk about? What if the whispers in the hallway aren't just stories? These are real disturbing campus horror encounters shared by people who lived through them. Turn off the lights, put on your earphones, close your eyes, and imagine my stories. Welcome to the Night Files. Last fall, I transferred into Ellerby University for my junior year. I needed a fresh start, somewhere far from my dead end hometown and the claustrophobic people I grew up with. Ellerby wasn't my dream school, but it was old, prestigious, and offered me a decent scholarship. They put me in Braxton Hall, one of the oldest dorms on campus. The place looked straight out of a gothic horror novel. Ivy-covered walls, tall windows, and a roof that creaked in the wind like it had secrets to keep. I moved into room 304. It was at the far end of the third floor. The hallway was narrow, and the air smelled like old wood, dust, and something faintly metallic. Every step on the warped floorboards echoed more than it should have. Still, I liked the solitude. My RA was a guy named Andrew Patel. Quiet, kind of lanky, always wore old hoodies, and looked like he hadn't slept in months. During move-in, he glanced at my room number and hesitated. 304? He asked. I nodded. He paused, then said, "If you hear anything weird at night, don't go wandering around." Seriously, I asked what he meant, but all he said was, "The building's old. Pipes bang, wind whistles through cracks." That's all. But the way he said it, and the look in his eyes, it didn't sit right with me. The first week was uneventful. I got used to the creaky floor, the flickering lights, and the occasional cold draft that came from nowhere. I met another guy on my floor, James Carter. He lived 2 doors down, and we clicked pretty quick. Chill dude, always had music playing, always down for pizza or video games. One night he knocked on my door with 2 beers and something rolled up under his arm. "You gotta see this," he said, handing me the drink. He unrolled what looked like an old blueprint. Found it in the library archives. It was a floor plan of Braxton Hall, except it showed 4 floors, not 3. "Look," James said, pointing. "This shows a 4th floor. Room 401 to 406. Common area. Some kind of faculty office, too." I told him there were only 3 floors. I'd been up to the top. No stairs beyond the 3rd. He nodded. "Exactly. The staircase just stops. But this shows another level." It was weird. Too detailed to be a mistake, but no sign of that floor existed now. No stairs. No elevator access. Maybe it was sealed off? I asked. Maybe. Or maybe it was never supposed to be found. The rest of that night, I couldn't stop looking at that blueprint. Something about it felt wrong, like we weren't supposed to know about it. A few nights later, I woke up at 3:04 a.m. Weirdly, the same number as my room. I wasn't having a nightmare or anything. I just woke up and heard tapping. Light. Repetitive. Like someone drumming their fingers on a wooden table. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from above. I stood in the middle of my room, listening. The air was colder than usual. I checked the heater. It was on, blowing warm air. The tapping continued, then stopped. Curious and a little unsettled, I opened my door and looked down. The hallway. Nothing. All the other doors were closed. But when I looked up, I saw it. Centered directly above my doorway was a square outline. A ceiling hatch. The kind maintenance uses for attic access. Except, Braxton Hall didn't have an attic, and the floor above shouldn't exist. The next day, I asked Andrew about it. He cut me off fast. There's no attic. Don't mess with it. But I heard noises. Old building. Pipes. Wood shifting.
Ignore it.
His tone wasn't casual anymore. It was firm, like a warning. That night, the tapping came back. But it wasn't just tapping anymore. It was dragging. A long, slow scrape, like something heavy being pulled across a wooden floor above me. James and I decided we had to check it out. He brought a flashlight and a folding chair so we could reach the hatch. I wasn't thrilled about it, but curiosity got the better of us. The hatch wasn't locked, just an old iron latch. We opened it. A cold gust of air hit my face. Dust fell like snow. I pulled myself up first, and James followed. We found a narrow crawl space, but it wasn't insulation or wiring up there. It was another hallway, an entire hidden floor, perfectly preserved in dust. 6 doors lined the corridor, 401 through 406, just like the blueprint. None of them looked recently used, except one, room 405. Its door was slightly open. James wanted to go in. I told him we shouldn't, that this had gone far enough. But he pushed it. We stepped inside. Room 405 was set up like a dorm, but older, wooden furniture, iron bed frame, and faded photos on the desk. Photos of students, but their eyes were scratched out. There were symbols on the wall, drawn in what looked like charcoal or something darker. And in the far corner of the room, a chair, facing the wall. There was something sitting in it. I whispered James's name. He didn't move, just stared. Then the thing in the chair shifted. Its shoulders twitched. We bolted, down the crawl space, through the hatch, slammed it shut, and pushed my dresser underneath it. Neither of us said a word the rest of the night. The next morning, James was gone. His room looked like he never moved in. Clothes gone. Bed made. No trace of his stuff. I asked Andrew where he went. He just said, "People come and go." I knew something was wrong. I went to campus security. They brushed me off. Said students drop out all the time. But I knew what I saw. I knew James wouldn't just vanish. That night, I stayed awake. At exactly 3:04 a.m., the tapping started again. Then the dragging. Then a whisper, right under the hatch. My name. Soft. Repeated. Almost like a chant. I stared at the ceiling, frozen. The hatch handle twitched, like something was testing it. Then it stopped. In the morning, the hatch was open again. And on my desk, laid out perfectly, was that same blueprint. But now, the 4th floor was scratched out. All of it, except for room 304. This happened during my freshman year at a small liberal arts college in upstate New York. The campus was old. Half the buildings had plaques that said they were built before the Civil War. I was assigned to Langford Hall, a co-ed dorm that was mostly empty because it was being phased out. According to the RA, there were maybe 12 of us living in a building made for 80. The dorm was drafty and dim, especially at night. The kind of place that always felt colder inside than it did outside, even with the heat on. My room was on the 1st floor, facing the back courtyard. Across from me was a hallway that ended in a locked, gray door. No one ever talked about it. I figured it was a utility room or janitor's closet. One night, I asked my RA, Mallory, about it. She was a senior who clearly didn't give a crap about anything. "That's the old basement access," she said. "It's sealed shut. Has been for years." I asked why. She just shrugged. "Water damage or mold or something. Admin doesn't touch it." But the next thing she said stuck with me. "Besides, no one ever goes down there twice." She said it with a half smile, but there was something about the way she avoided eye contact that didn't feel like a joke. A few weeks into the semester, I started waking up at night to strange noises. It always happened around 2 o'clock or 3 a.m. At first, I thought it was just the building creaking, but then it got specific. I'd hear footsteps echoing in the hallway, even when I knew everyone was asleep. Soft, slow steps, like someone was barefoot. Then came the voices, muffled at first, like someone whispering behind a wall. But one night, I heard it clearly. A woman's voice, crying. It was coming from behind that locked basement door. I stood in the hallway in my pajama pants, listening. The sound of someone sobbing, choked. Panicked sobs echoed from behind the thick metal. Then it just stopped. No fade out. No footsteps. Just silence. The next morning, I asked Mallory again. "I heard someone crying last night," I said. "From the basement." She froze for a second, then laughed nervously. "Old pipes," she said. "The plumbing groans sometimes. You'll get used to it." I didn't believe her. Neither would you if you heard it yourself. A few nights later, I was in the lounge with a couple guys from upstairs, Derek and Milo. They were part of a fraternity and had been drinking. We got on the subject of Langford Hall rumors. I told them about the crying woman behind the basement door. Milo perked up. "Oh, you heard her too?" he asked. I stared. "What do you mean?" "She's real, man," he said. "They say someone died down there in the 70s. A student. Locked herself in the basement after a nervous breakdown. Starved to death. Now she cries every night at the same time." Derek laughed and stood up. "Bet we can open that door. You guys down?" I didn't want to go, but I followed anyway. They brought a screwdriver and a crowbar. To my surprise, the lock on the door wasn't that strong. After about 10 minutes of prying, it gave with a loud snap. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a stone stairwell leading down into pitch-black darkness. Milo turned on his phone flashlight. The stairs were covered in dust. No footprints. No sign of use. We descended one step at a time. The air got colder the farther we went. It smelled like mold and rust. At the bottom, we found a hallway lined with wooden doors. Most were open, revealing small rooms with nothing but rotting furniture. But the last door on the left was closed and locked from the inside. Milo banged on the door. "Hey, ghost lady, you home?" Derek laughed, but it sounded forced. I just stood there, heart pounding. Something about that room felt wrong. Then we heard it, a sharp thump from inside the locked room, followed by a soft scraping, like someone dragging their fingers across the inside of the door. Milo leaned in and whispered something dumb like, "Come out and play," when the lights from our phones flickered. Then Milo's went out completely. We all backed up, trying to relight our flashlights. Mine came back on, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were scratch marks on the door, fresh ones, like someone had been clawing at it. That was enough for me. I turned and sprinted back up the stairs. The other two followed. As we reached the top and slammed the metal door shut behind us, we all froze. because from the other side of the door, we heard knocking. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Then silence. Derek relocked the door and put a chair in front of it. We never talked about it again. 2 days later, Milo stopped coming to class. No one knew where he went. His roommate said he packed up and left overnight without telling anyone. Derek refused to talk about the basement. Whenever I brought it up, he'd just shake his head and walk away. I went back to check the basement door a few days later. It was sealed shut again, except this time, there was a piece of paper taped to it. A university maintenance slip. It read, "Do not enter, structural hazard. Area permanently restricted." But someone had scribbled something on the bottom in Sharpie. 5 words, written in shaking handwriting. "Don't answer if she knocks." This happened during my sophomore year at a college in Oregon. I was transferred mid-semester due to a scheduling mix-up with my old dorm. They put me in Langdon Hall, which was located on the far edge of campus, practically touching the woods. It was quiet, older, and kind of forgotten. When I got there, the RA gave me a key and said I'd be in room 721, top floor. I asked if I'd have a roommate. She checked her clipboard and said, "Nope, you're solo." That was perfect for me. I like privacy. I like quiet. But when I unlocked the door to room 721, I paused. There were 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 sets of furniture. One side looked untouched, but the other side, the one near the window, was lived in. There was a backpack leaning against the dresser, shoes by the bed, a half-used spiral notebook on the desk, and a faint smell of cologne. I went back down to ask the RA about it. She looked annoyed but checked the roster again. "There's no one else assigned to that room," she said. "You're the only one. Maybe the furniture's just leftover. But someone's using it," I told her. "There's stuff in there." She hesitated. "That room's been empty since the semester started. If there's anything left behind, just box it up and bring it to the front desk." I went back up to 721. This time, I opened the drawers. There were clothes. Not old ones either, like laundered, folded t-shirts. Phone chargers plugged into the outlet. Someone's shampoo in the shower. That night, I left the door slightly cracked while I slept. I didn't sleep much. Around 3 a.m., I swore I heard the door open, just slightly. But when I checked, it was still how I left it. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Until the next day, when I came back from class, something was off. My laptop was still where I left it. But the spiral notebook on the other desk? It was open, and someone had written something new on the last page. "I don't like when you move my stuff." I reported it. Campus security came to check the room. They did a sweep, looked in the closet, under the beds. Nothing. The RA swore up and down that no one else had a key. I asked them to change the lock. They said they would. They never did. Instead, I got a visit from a man who introduced himself as campus housing coordinator. Middle-aged, wore a navy jacket with no name tag. Didn't smile once. He asked me a bunch of questions. Did I see anyone? Had I heard noises? Did I ever lock the door from the inside? Then he said something that stuck with me. "This dorm has a history of break-ins," he said. "But we've handled it. Just keep your valuables with you." Break-ins? By who? Why this room? Before he left, I asked him if anyone else had ever lived in 721 recently. He paused for a second. There was someone last year, he said. A student named Ellis. But he withdrew mid-semester. When I asked why, he just said, personal reasons. I decided to look him up. I searched the student database. No Ellis matched the dorm records. I asked a couple seniors. One of them, a girl from the biology department, said she remembered someone with that name. Real quiet guy, she said. Always wore the same gray hoodie. Vanished one day. Just never came back. Apparently, someone found a note in his room, but the school never said what it said. That night, I couldn't sleep again, so I stayed up with the light on, scrolling through my phone. At 2:46 a.m., I heard something. The sound of a drawer sliding open. Not mine. The one on the other side of the room. I froze. Then I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. But the drawer slammed shut. Hard. I jumped out of bed and turned on every light. The desk drawer was closed tight. Nothing inside but the same old notebook. Except now, there was a new note, written in all caps. You don't belong here. I moved out the next day. Told the RA I didn't care where I ended up. I just wanted out of room 721. She didn't argue. I was halfway through packing when I heard it. The front door opened, but I hadn't touched it. No wind. No visitors. Just open. And standing right there in the doorway was a guy. Gray hoodie. Pale skin. Eyes like he hadn't slept in months. He didn't say anything. Just stared at me. Then turned and walked out. I chased after him down the hallway, down the stairs, but when I reached the lobby, he was gone. There were no exits he could have taken in that time. I told the RA. She just said, "You saw Ellis." Like it was common, like it was expected. They let me move into a triple room across campus the next morning. A few weeks later, I heard someone else got assigned to room 721. He dropped out 2 weeks later, no reason given. This happened in 2022 at a private liberal arts college in upstate New York. It's not a school I want to name because technically, I'm not supposed to talk about what happened, but let's just say it's the kind of place where tradition matters more than safety. There's an event on campus every October called the Lantern Walk. It's always done at midnight on the last Friday of the month. No flyers, no social media, just whispers. A tradition passed down from upperclassmen to freshmen in the know. The rules are simple. Bring your own lantern. No flashlights. No phones. Walk alone. Follow the path behind the old chapel into the woods. Don't stray. And don't speak to anyone until you're back on campus. Most people think it's just a hazing thing. A spooky walk to scare underclassmen. But the people who do it every year, they don't talk about what they saw. Not really. And now I know why. My roommate Eric wanted to do it. Said it was a rite of passage. We made our own lanterns from glass jars and dollar store candles, just like the upperclassmen told us. At 11:50 p.m., we snuck out and met behind the chapel with about a dozen other students, all holding their lanterns, all quiet. At midnight, someone rang the old chapel bell. Once, and the walk began. We followed a narrow dirt path into the trees. It was dead silent. No wind. No crickets. Even the woods felt like they were holding their breath. After maybe 15 minutes, I noticed something strange. People in the line were starting to disappear. Not like running or being dragged off, just gone. 1 second they were in front of me. The next, there was no one. The line kept moving, but it felt thinner, less real. My lantern flickered like it was about to go out. Then, I started seeing people standing between the trees. They weren't part of the group. They weren't holding lanterns. They just stood between the trees, motionless, expressionless, watching us walk past. I told myself they were students in costume, maybe seniors trying to mess with us, until one of them stepped forward, not onto the path, but just far enough that I could see his face. He looked wrong. His eyes were too large. His mouth hung open just a little too wide, like he was mimicking a human expression and not doing it right. I looked behind me. There were only 3 people left in the line. Then 2. Then just me. I kept walking. I didn't dare turn around. The trees felt closer now, like they were leaning inward. My lantern's flame shrank to a pinprick. That's when I heard footsteps, off the path, pacing me, one on each side. Then, from somewhere up ahead, I saw a second lantern flicker into view. Someone else. I hurried toward it, hoping it was Eric. But when I got closer, I realized the person holding it was wearing a mask. It looked hand-carved, almost tribal. Long nose, hollow black eyes. They raised a finger to their lips, like SHHHH. And I froze. Then they whispered, barely audible over the wind. "Don't look back. Keep walking." I obeyed. I didn't ask why. I just walked. Eventually, I stepped out of the woods, back onto the lawn behind the chapel. There were others there, some of the people from earlier, but not all of them. And no one spoke. Not a single word. We just nodded at each other and walked back to our dorms. When I got to my room, Eric wasn't there. His bed was still made. His lantern sitting on the desk, unlit. I waited until morning, then asked around. No one had seen him. Campus police got involved. His parents were called. They said he must have run off. But I knew better. The following week, a sophomore slipped a note under my door. No name, no explanation, just a message. Not everyone comes back from the lantern walk. And taped to the bottom, a photograph. It was old, black and white, and grainy. A group of students holding lanterns, standing in the woods. In the background, barely visible, was a face in the trees, wearing the same carved wooden mask I'd seen that night.